2021 Formula One season look like if Mercedes and Red Bull were not there? The season kicks off in late March in Bahrain, and it's a strong start for Charles Leclerc, who claims pole position for the opening round of the season in his second ever pole position in Bahrain. However, Lando Norris is right there with him, and in the race between them it will be Lando Norris coming out on top to claim his first ever victory in Formula One and to lead the championship for the first time in Formula One, with Charles Leclerc coming home in second place behind him and Daniel Ricciardo in third. A strong start for the Woking team with a 1-3 finish, although with Carlos Sainz in fourth place, it's a strong start for Ferrari as well, with pole position second and fourth. And the strong form for Ferrari would, thankfully for them, continue onwards to the round two at one of their home races this season at Imola. It will be another pole position for Leclerc, back-to-back poles for him in the opening two races this season, and that pole position he would convert into a race win ahead of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, making it a Ferrari 1-3 in Imola, in Italy, to the delight of the Tifosi, and it'll be the same top four in the end, with Daniel Ricciardo in fourth. Now, I know you may be sitting there thinking, hang on a minute, wasn't Lando Norris the highest finishing non-Red Bull or Mercedes driver in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix that year? Well, yes, he was. However, it's at this point I need to bring something up that I didn't really have to mention in my 2023 Without Red Bull video, and that's that when you take teams out of a season, certain incidents wouldn't have happened if those teams weren't there. And this is one of them cases, because that red flag that was caused between George and Bottas, that wouldn't have happened. Because who does George crash? George can't crash into Valtteri if Valtteri's not there. So, no red flag. And before the red flag came out, then Leclerc was rather comfortably, by about 25 to 30 seconds, the highest placed non-Red Bull or Mercedes driver. And I think he would have kept that if there'd been no red flag. So hence why it will be a Leclerc win and not a Norris win. And George Russell would actually finish in the points for the second race in a row, as he would have finished P10 in the opening race as well. But now we head off to Portugal for the Portuguese Grand Prix, and it's not Leclerc on pole position this time, but it is still a Ferrari. Carlos Sainz scores his first ever pole position in Formula One at Portugal. However, he would not be coming out on top in the race. He would actually finish the race in P7. It will be Lando Norris taking victory for the second time this season, ahead of Leclerc finishing in second place. 1-2 again for these two. And then third place will be going to Esteban Ocon, Alpine getting on the podium in round 3 here. But Alpine a ways off of Ferrari and McLaren, as they've been very, very strong at the start of this season and really putting themselves into that position of that is the championship fight. But now it's off to Barcelona for round 4, the Spanish Grand Prix, and it's 4 from 4 so far for Ferrari in terms of pole positions. Charles Leclerc claiming pole for the third time in 4 races, and he would end the weekend with a hat-trick, as he would go on to win the race with the fastest lap as well, from Daniel Ricciardo in second place, and Carlos Sainz finishing on the podium in his home race for his second pole of the season and the second Ferrari 1-3 of the year. And now 4 rounds in, let's have a period look at how the championship would currently be shaping up. It would currently be Charles Leclerc leading the championship on 87 points, and Lando Norris would be sitting just 6 points behind him on 81 points. Daniel Ricciardo would currently be sat in third on 55 points, and then fourth would go the way of Carlos Sainz on 48 points, while Esteban Ocon, thanks to that podium in Portugal, would be rounding off the top 5 on 33 points. And then the top 10 would be completed by Gasly on 26, Stroll on 23, Alonso on 17, Tsunoda on 12, and then Raikkonen on 10. And in the constructors, it would be even closer between Ferrari and McLaren, as McLaren would currently be leading the Constructors' Championship, but only by one singular point. 136 points for McLaren, 135 for Ferrari, as this old rivalry between Ferrari and McLaren would be reignited this season. Goodbye to Hamilton versus Verstappen. We do not need them. We do not need that championship fight to have a good 2021 season. Introducing Leclerc v Norris. And then the top 3 will be completed by Alpine, and then AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and Haas, who would still be on nothing. Now we're on to round 5 in Monaco, and well, the weekend does not go any freaking differently for Charles Leclerc. He still gets pole position, he still crashes at the end of Q3, and he still doesn't start the race because Ferrari didn't notice the left drive shaft was broken when they were repairing the bloody car. But it would actually be his teammates coming out on top in the race. Carlos Sainz would claim his first ever race victory in Formula One this weekend, ahead of his former teammate Lando Norris, who would be claiming back the championship lead and opening up a bit of a gap ahead of Leclerc in the standings, while it would be Sebastian Sebastian Vettel, Aston Martin's new recruit, who would claim his and the team's first podium in Formula 1 with P3. And the fortunes would continue for the Aston Martin team at the following race in Azerbaijan, as Leclerc will be on pole for the 5th time in 6 races. However, in the race, in a bit of a hectic race where there will be no late safety car because Max Verstappen wouldn't be there to have a tyre failure, or rather no late red flag.
Lights out, and Perez immediately jumps across. Lewis Hamilton's going to get the lead. Lewis Hamilton takes it away, but he lost him, and he's lost it.
Sebastian Vettel would come out on top with the race win, plus the fastest lap, while Pierre Gasly would finish in 2nd place, and Charles Leclerc would claim the final spot on the podium in 3rd. Now from Azerbaijan, we head back over to Europe for the French Grand Prix, and Carlos Sainz would be scoring his 2nd pole position of the season, but much like Portugal, where he finished 7th after starting on pole, he would once again finish 7th after starting on pole, while Lando Norris would claim the race victory ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo for a McLaren 1-2 finish, and Pierre Gasly would be delighting the home crowd with a French driver on the podium at the French Grand Prix. Of course, that race win for Lando Norris, that would open up a pretty sizable gap for him in the championship, as Leclerc still wouldn't score any point. And in fact, Lando Norris over the course of the next couple of races would just continue to grow that gap, as at the next round in Austria for the Styrian Grand Prix, he would win the race from pole position with the McLaren driver, ahead of Carlos Sainz in 2nd with the fastest lap, while Leclerc would be finishing on the podium in 3rd, getting some points on the board but still being outscored by his rival. It is worth noting that yes, Leclerc and Gasly still would have had that coming together on the opening lap in Styria, but at round 9 for the Austrian Grand Prix, same circuit, same winner from the same position. Lando Norris once again winning from pole position, taking his 5th win of the season and his 3rd consecutive race win, once again ahead of Carlos Sainz in 2nd with the fastest lap, but this time it will be Daniel Ricciardo finishing in 3rd, while Leclerc will be in 4th. Not doing much good for his tally in the Drivers' Championship, as Lando Norris would have opened up a massive lead in the Drivers' standings. He'll be leading on 184 points, while Leclerc will be 55 points behind him on 129 points. 3rd place would be Carlos Sainz, just a few points behind his teammate on 125, while 4th place would be Daniel Ricciardo, and 5th place would be Pierre Gasly, as those two seem to be in their own private battle over 4th place. Then the top 10 will be rounded up by Sebastian Vettel in 6th, 7th place will go to his teammate Lance Stroll, 8th place will be Fernando Alonso, 9th place Esteban Ocon, and then Yuki Tsunoda will be rounding off the top 10. While in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren would still be leading the way. The gap wouldn't be as big as it is in the Drivers' Championship at 282 points for McLaren to 254 for Ferrari, but it'll be a lead nonetheless. 3rd place will be going to AlphaTauri, who have overtaken Alpine, and so have Aston Martin. Aston Martin currently sitting in 4th place right now on 115 points, while Alpine would have slipped back to 5th on 95 points. And then it will be Alfa Romeo, Williams and Haas rounding off the top 8. There's only 8 teams in this world, and yes, Haas would still be on 0. Even without Mercedes and Red Bull, Haas still can't freaking score anything in this season. But now as we head off to Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, Lando Norris' home race, this is where Leclerc starts to fight back. He claims pole position in qualifying and then turns that into a sprint race victory ahead of Lando Norris in 2nd place for the sprint and Daniel Ricciardo finishing in 3rd there, as we have the first sprint weekend in Formula 1, actually, not just of the season. But that sprint win would grant him the P1 starting position for the Grand Prix, and Leclerc would turn that P1 starting position into a race win ahead of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, the exact same top 3 from the sprint race. And now we come to the pain in the arse Grand Prix. Why have I called Hungary the pain in the arse Grand Prix? Well, I'm glad you asked. Working out this race without Mercedes and Red Bull is a fucking nightmare. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, this race requires explanation. It requires explanation for how I worked out what I worked out. Because we don't have the Bottas bowling game. I do think Stroll still would have hit someone, but I do not think that someone would have been Leclerc. I think he would have ended up hitting someone else. I will explain at the end of the video, okay? I don't want to break up the flow we've got going here, so stay tuned to the end of the video for my more in-depth explanation on Hungary. Because it wouldn't have been Esteban Ocon winning this race. But I don't think Sebastian Vettel would have even been disqualified. But I'll come back to that at the end of the video. Let's just continue as we were. I will explain later, okay? And I will say, am I fully convinced by this? No. But I will never be, so I'm just going to run with what I've figured out. Qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix would end with Pierre Gasly claiming pole position for the first time in Formula 1, ahead of Lando Norris in 2nd place and Charles Leclerc in 3rd. And Pierre Gasly would turn that pole position into a race win, his 2nd ever race win in Formula 1. Not Ocon winning, but still a Frenchman, and he would have the fastest lap as well, as he did claim the fastest lap, but it would be Charles Leclerc finishing in 2nd place and Lando Norris in 3rd. I will explain explain later. For now, let's just move on to the it got rained off, it wasn't really a Grand Prix in Spa. Just seriously, just bear with me on Hungary. But now on to the Belgian Grand Prix, or really Belgian not a Grand Prix, because let's be fair, it wasn't really a race. But it's one of those times where the Saturday performance really would count for George Russell, as he would claim pole position and thus the race win. Williams' first race win since 2012 in Barcelona. I really had to think about that for a second. I really shouldn't have. I just did a video on that race a week ago. Go check it out. But George Russell would claim the race victory after an amazing qualifying lap the previous day from Daniel Ricciardo in second place and Sebastian Vettel claiming third. And yes, this would still be half points. But now, before we get into the rest of the races after the summer break, let's have another look at the standings. Lando Norris would still lead the championship on 219 points. However, Charles Leclerc would have closed in over the last few races and be now 40 points behind on 179. Third place would be going to the way of Carlos Sainz, while fourth and fifth would still be Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly. Sixth place would still be Sebastian Vettel, while Fernando Alonso now sat in seventh ahead of Ocon on eighth. Ninth would be Lance Stroll, and then 10th would be Yuki Tsunoda still. While in the Constructors' Championship, as I hit my desk, McLaren still lead the way on 342 points, and Ferrari are still in second, but it's not quite as far behind now. It's 324 points for the Maranello outfit, while AlphaTauri still, after that win for Pierre Gasly in Hungary, they still sit in third in the Constructors' Championship, ahead of Alpine, who are now back up into fourth, ahead of Aston Martin, who are still in fourth, but only barely on 140.5 points, while Alpine currently are in fifth, just a matter of points behind them on 137, while it is then still Alfa Romeo, Williams, and Haas, who still haven't freaking scored anything. Now it's on to the Dutch Grand Prix, as Kimi Räikkönen will be taking a couple of races out because of COVID, and Robert Kubica will be stepping in down at Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly would be having a very, very strong weekend, as he would take not only pole position, but he would go on to convert that into a race win. He was very quick that weekend. He would still be quick here. He will be taking the victory ahead of Charles Leclerc in second place, and then Fernando Alonso claiming his first podium since the Ferrari days. And with Lando Norris finishing this race down in P6, then that's another 10 points gained for Leclerc in the championship. However, unfortunately for Leclerc, Norris and McLaren would be very, very strong in Monza at round 14, as Lando Norris would be quickest in qualifying. However, he would not start the race on pole position. That would actually be Daniel Ricciardo, as Ricciardo would go on to win the sprint race and win pole position for Sunday's race. Lando Norris would finish second and Charles Leclerc would finish in third. And we all know how this ends for Daniel Ricciardo. He goes on. The result is kind of more or less the same for the 1-2. The only real difference for the podium is that Leclerc's in third and not Bottas. But Daniel Ricciardo still wins the Italian Grand Prix. Lando Norris is still in second. It's still McLaren 1-2. And Leclerc is in third now instead of Valtteri Bottas, because Bottas isn't here, as we established with Imola. And now we move on to the Russian Grand Prix, a race which saw Lando Norris on pole position. He's still on pole position here. He still screws up the change to intermediate tyres when the rain starts towards the end of the race. However, instead of finishing in 7th, he finishes in 4th place, and it's actually Carlos Sainz who ends up taking the race victory ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in 2nd place, and Fernando Alonso finishing in 3rd for the 2nd time in 3 races. However, while Lando Norris did miss out on the race win, he still scores 13 more points than his championship rival, who finished outside of the points and has lost ground again in the championship. Lando Norris still leading the way, 261 points, 48 points ahead of Leclerc in 2nd on 213. 3rd place is still Carlos Sainz. He's just kind of sitting there now in no man's land, while it's still Daniel Ricciardo in 4th and then Pierre Gasly in 5th. Fernando Alonso, thanks to his couple of podiums, has now moved up to 6th ahead of Sebastian Vettel in 7th, Lance Stroll in 8th, 9th goes to Esteban Ocon, and then 10th is still Yuki Tsunoda. Much like how in real life in the 2021 season, you may recall that it's around about this point in the season where the tables turned between Ferrari and McLaren, and Ferrari start gaining back a lot of ground and they managed to overhaul McLaren. Well, the same thing would happen at this point in this season here. As we head on to Turkey for round 16, Leclerc would have a very strong weekend. He would take pole position and he would convert it into a race victory ahead of Pierre Gasly, finishing in 2nd place, and Lando Norris finishing in 3rd. And that strong form for Leclerc in Turkey, that would continue on to Austin as he would once again win the race from pole position with the fastest lap this time though. While it'll be Daniel Ricciardo finishing in second place ahead of Carlos Sainz finishing in third, and with Lando Norris off the podium, that is a crucial 14 points that scored more for Leclerc than what Norris scored. Plus the 10 he scored more than him in Turkey. He's starting to eat into his lead, but the most crucial thing about the US Grand Prix is that in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren would lose the lead and Ferrari would claim at 3 points now they will be ahead of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. However, the bigger eat into his lead, that would come at round 18 in Mexico City, as this is another one where I had to do a little bit of working out because Daniel Ricciardo wouldn't be hitting Valtteri Bottas at turn 1, but it would be Pierre Gasly is sitting in pole position for this one, and he would convert that pole position into a race win ahead of Leclerc in second place and then Ricciardo in third. I still think Ricciardo would have screwed up turn 1 a little bit, but I don't think he would have hit someone. And as for Ricciardo's teammate, P8. Not very good for his championship lead, which is evaporating very, very quickly. But now as we come on to the final sprint weekend of the season in Brazil, Pierre Gasly would once again be fastest in qualifying. However, he would not start on pole position for the Grand Prix. That will be Carlos Sainz starting on pole position for the Grand Prix, from Lando Norris in second and then Charles Leclerc in third. Those two would still have their slight coming together, I think, off of the line. And it will be, in the end, Leclerc coming out on top with the race victory, while it would be Carlos Sainz finishing in second place and then Pierre Gasly claiming third and Lando Norris finishing down in sixth. Well, Lando Norris being outscored by Leclerc 4 races in a row. I mean, in the span of 4 races, Leclerc would have turned a 48-point deficit in the championship into a 6-point lead, as Leclerc would now be leading the championship on 308 points, 6 ahead of Lando Norris on 302. Leclerc would be leading the championship for the first time since Barcelona earlier in the season. Carlos Sainz would still be in the middle of no man's land, while it would still be Daniel Ricciardo sitting in 4th place, but not by that much, as Pierre Gasly is there, just 9 points behind him in 5th. 6th place would still be Fernando Alonso, 7th would be Sebastian Vettel, 8th place would be Esteban Ocon, 9th Stroll, and then 10th is still Yuki Tsunoda. But now here we are with 3 races left in the season: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi. And in qualifying for Qatar, it will be Pierre Gasly finding himself sitting in pole position despite having a few problems at the end of Q3. He would not convert that into a race win. He would actually finish the race down in 8th place. And it would be, of all people, Fernando Alonso coming out on top in the race to take the victory ahead of Esteban Ocon and Alpine 1-2 in this Grand Prix, followed by Lance Stroll, who will be finishing in P3. While as for the championship protagonists, it will be Leclerc in 4th, and then Lando Norris would finish down in 6th with the fastest lap. And now it's on to Saudi Arabia, a race that is a little bit foggy with that second restart, because there would have been no Sergio Perez involved in that big melee. I still think there would have been a red flag there though. However, Leclerc has his first opportunity to wrap up the Drivers' Championship with a 9-point lead over Lando Norris, and it will be Leclerc starting off the weekend very, very strongly with claiming pole position. He would not convert it to a race win. He would finish in 3rd place with the fastest lap. However, with Lando Norris down in 7th, that's still good news for him, though not quite the championship wrapped up yet. It would be Daniel Ricciardo finishing ahead of him in 2nd place, but the race win would be going the way of Esteban Ocon, who would still claim his race victory in 2021, his first ever win in Formula 1, to make it 9 different winners in a single season, which I believe that would tie the all-time record. However, while Leclerc wouldn't have been able to wrap up the Drivers' Championship in Saudi Arabia, Ferrari, they would have gone into this race with a chance to wrap up the Constructors, and they would have done so, with Leclerc finishing 3rd with the fastest lap and Sainz in 5th. That would have been enough for Ferrari to wrap up the Drivers' Championship on 612 points, McLaren in 2nd on 547. Alpine would be sitting in 3rd in their battle with AlphaTauri for 3rd on 296 points, with AlphaTauri on 272. That battle is still to be decided in the final race of the season. Aston Martin will be in the middle of no man's land really on 232.5, and then it'll be Alfa Romeo on 91.5, Williams on 56.5, and then Haas still on nothing. And now the Drivers' Championship. There's still a couple of battles still to be decided here. The big one, the Drivers' Championship. Leclerc leading on 336 points. Lando Norris is 19 points behind him on 317. It's not impossible for Norris, but it would be difficult. He'll be hoping for a bit of a miracle to strike in Abu Dhabi. Carlos Sainz is guaranteed to be finishing in P3, however, the battle for P4 is still ongoing, as Daniel Ricciardo sits in 4th on 230 points. Pierre Gasly, who has been very, very strong this season, is only 13 points behind him. He could still overhaul him. There's still a private battle going on between the Alpine drivers for 6th place, Alonso on 151 and Ocon on 145, and the Aston Martins are also battling between themselves over 8th place, 117 points for Stroll currently versus 115.5 for Vettel, while Tsunoda is in his private battle with Raikkonen to try and stay in the top 10. And now let's head on to that final round of 2021, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, a race that can give everyone flashbacks, and I will just say this, since we're talking about Abu Dhabi 21 here, Hamilton fans, Verstappen fans, keep it civil in the comments, okay? I'm not getting into the whole safety car thing here, okay? I don't know what would have happened there in this scenario. However, I do not think it would have been anywhere near as controversial. Because under that final safety car, the two championship protagonists would have been in 4th and 7th. They wouldn't have been 1 and 2. So I don't think the race might have just finished under the safety car, who knows? But it would have been Lando Norris claiming pole position, something he really needed to try and do in his bid to try and overhaul the 19-point gap he has to Leclerc in the championship. To do so, he would really be needing to win the race, which he would not do. Carlos Sainz would be doing his bit to help his teammate out in winning the championship, and he would win the race with Sainz for his 3rd race win of the season, ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in 2nd place and Pierre Gasly in 3rd. The AlphaTauris finishing in 2nd and 3rd. It wouldn't be quite enough to overhaul Alpine, who they would finish in 5th and 6th in this race, but just behind the two Alpines would be sitting Charles Leclerc, who's 7th place for him. Lando Norris would be finishing up in 4th with the fastest lap, but 7th would be enough for Leclerc to claim the championship, 12 points ahead of Lando Norris. He would be Ferrari's first world champion since 2007, and it would be his first championship in Formula 1. Lando Norris just missing out by the skin of his teeth, really. While I mentioned Pierre Gasly finishing the race in 3rd place, that would be enough for him to claim 4th place on countback, with Ricciardo finishing down in 9th. Both would tie on 232 points, but Gasly would get it as he's won more races this season. And let's look at the final Drivers' Championship standings. Charles Leclerc will be your champion on 342 points, 12 ahead of Lando Norris, who would have to settle for 2nd place on 330. 3rd would be Carlos Sainz on 301, while Pierre Gasly and Daniel Ricciardo will be tied on 232 points, but Gasly gets 4th on countback as he has 3 wins to Ricciardo's 1 win, putting Ricciardo into 5th. Alonso comes out on top in the battle of the Alpines on 161 points, with Ocon having to settle for 7th on 153. Vettel would come out on top in the battle of the Aston Martins on 119.5 to 118 points for Stroll, while Yuki Tsunoda would remain in the top 10 with that 2nd place finish, finishing off on 73 points. Then outside of the top 10, with Kimi Raikkonen finishing off his final Formula 1 season in 11th place on 51 points, George Russell will be 12th on 45.5 points, 5 points ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi in his final season in the sport in 13th place on 40.5 points. Then you have Nicholas Latifi, the last of the people who scored points this season on 11. Then you have Robert Kubica, who finished ahead of both Haas drivers, who both scored nothing. Kubica scored nothing as well. And then we have the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari wrapped up the Constructors' Championship in Saudi Arabia. They finish off on 643 points to McLaren's at 562. Alpine, as I alluded to, they come out on top in the battle between themselves and AlphaTauri for 3rd on 314 points to AlphaTauri's 305. Aston Martin finish off in 5th place on 237.5 points, really in the middle of no man's land, but Alfa Romeo finish in 6th place on 91.5 points, and Williams are on 56.5 points, and Haas still scored abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Okay. Let me explain Hungary now. Also, yes, I know my lighting isn't the best. The audio's probably shit. I'm recording this on my phone, which is sat on the back of my keyboard, leaning against my monitor. That's the setup we're working with here. I don't feel like pulling out my webcam because I don't have it set up at the moment. But I'm going to explain this by, first of all, looking at the race starts, right? So we're going to look at, first of all, the start for the actual top 3 in the race, Hamilton, Bottas, and Verstappen. And then we'll take a look at the race starts for the top 3 without those guys that I just mentioned plus Perez, which would have been Gasly 1st, Norris 2nd, and Leclerc 3rd, as I believe I said when I did the Hungary section of this video. So first of all, looking at the race start for the actual top 3, Hamilton was starting on pole position. Bottas was alongside Verstappen, was behind Hamilton. Bottas didn't get a great start, and then Hamilton got a good start. Verstappen got a really good start. Ignore Lando Norris for now. But that was the start for the actual top 3. And now if we just go back further in the grid, and we'll take a look at the starts for the, in this scenario, in this universe, top 3. And we'll go on board with Leclerc, because you can see both him, you can see Norris, and then you can see Gasly directly ahead of him. If we just look at the start, the 5 lights are going to go out any second now. There they are. And then Norris gets a decent start. Leclerc gets a decent start as well. Gasly gets away well. And so looking at all this, like, my thinking was to kind of look at the starts that the actual top 3 got, combined with the starts that what the top 3 would have been got in this Grand Prix, to kind of combine the two, see who would get what kind of start, if you know what I mean, in this scenario where those were 5, 6, and 7 in the actual race. We're starting 1, 2, and 3. Let me take this to this whiteboard right here. Okay, here we go. Once again, bear with, okay? Again, my setup for actually using a camera is actually crap. It's not on my keyboard anymore. It's resting on the back of my computer chair. Hopefully my phone doesn't fall. But very badly drawn Hungary turn 1 here. You got Gasly, Norris, and Leclerc. So my thinking is, in this scenario, that Gasly here, he would still get he got a decent start. It wasn't the best start, but he still got a decent start. Norris, I think he would still get away well, but I can't help but feel like Leclerc starting in 3rd, kind of having that slipstream, also okay, a bit of spray as well. I feel like he might be able to get Norris off the line and then into turn 1. I have a feeling that into turn 1 it would probably be Gasly getting to the apex first, and then you would have Leclerc, and then you would have Lando Norris falling in behind into 3rd place, into turn 1 here. I do think Lance Stroll still would have hit someone heading into turn 1. But I don't, as I said, I don't think it would have been Leclerc. I think that person, it wouldn't have been Leclerc, as I said. I think it would have been Daniel Ricciardo heading into turn 1, minding his own business. And you have Lance Stroll coming in, hitting him, and then they both get knocked out of the race. This is the best I can freaking explain it. Alright, my phone almost fell. This is the best I can explain it, okay? Just, am I fully convinced by this? No, I am not. Will I ever be? Also, no, I will not be. But I just can't help but feel like heading into turn 1, all 3 of them, I don't know, combining the starts that the actual top 3 got, combined with the starts that these 3 actually got, combining those 2 together, I kind of feel like Norris maybe wouldn't have gotten as good of a start from 2nd place. He might have done. We don't know. This is the thing about Hungary. We do not know exactly what would have happened without the Bottas bowling game. And we never will know. We can just speculate. And this is my speculation of what would have happened with Hungary 2021 without Mercedes, without Red Bull. It's been a fucking nightmare to figure it out, but this is the best I can do. Hopefully this explanation has made some semblance of sense. It probably hasn't, but who knows? I didn't write a script for this. I'm just freaking flying by the seat of my arse on this one. That's probably not the saying, but you know what I mean. But yeah, then from there, after turn 1, of course, we wouldn't have had the red flag. You know, we probably would have had a safety car, I feel like, for the Stroll Ricciardo, but I don't think it would have been a red flag. And then you come into the situation where we still have to deal with the inter to dry crossover period, because that happened during the red flag, that crossover. That was during the red flag in real life. We would have had to deal with that during the race. Then you have that thing of who comes out first, who gets it right on the timing, who doesn't get it right. I feel like it would have been kind of stations kept with the top 3, Gasly, Leclerc and Norris in this situation. But who knows, you know? We're in a situation here where 2 of the top 3 weren't in the race. They got knocked out at the beginning. So we don't know what their pace would have been like. It probably wouldn't have been all that bad, but we don't know for certain. But I do think it would have been Gasly, Leclerc, Norris. And I feel like Gasly v Leclerc, I kind of feel like it would have been a bit like Ocon versus Vettel. In the, you know, Vettel was trying to get past Ocon, but he couldn't, and then Leclerc, he'd be like Vettel, trying to find a way past, but just can't do it because of the way that Hungary is. It's just so difficult to overtake there. Or, well, overtakes to be made a bit easier, but it was one of the tracks with the lower on the lower overtake scale this year, but you know what I mean. Just, you know, in this scenario, no disqualification. And then Vettel wouldn't have been disqualified either, but anyway, I'm gonna cut the explanation there. That's the best I can come up with for Hungary. Probably gonna divide opinion, there's probably gonna be a lot of people who don't agree with me. But whatever, you know, this is the best I can do for Hungary. It's a fucking nightmare to figure out without Mercedes, but We'll run with that, yeah. And with that, we've come to the end of 2021 without Mercedes or Red Bull. The championship would not have been as close at the end, but at the same time, it would not have been anywhere near as controversial, and it still would have been a bloody good season, I think. 9 different race winners. Incredible form from the top 2. Lando Norris having a very, very strong run of form in the first half of the season. He was really good at points in the second half of the season. Leclerc with an amazing comeback to close in the gap and overhaul it to claim the championship. Pierre Gasly strong as ever. Daniel Ricciardo actually a bit stronger than he actually was in 2021. Alonso on the top step of the podium for the first time since 2013. Esteban Ocon still claiming a race win. Sebastian Vettel claiming a race win. It would have been a good season. But what would have also been a good season without Mercedes and Red Bull is 2020. Video coming in like 2 weeks probably. But for now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you have any other suggestion for years I should do without teams, let me know. I am planning on doing 2020, that'll be the next one. I am planning 2014, 15, 16 and 19 without Mercedes. I think they could be really good. 2017 and 2018, I'm not so sure because I don't think they probably would have been pretty straightforward without Mercedes. 2022 without Red Bull, I could, but it might be a bit straightforward. I might give it a quick mention at one point anyway, since I'm really doing the rest of the turbo hybrid era. But anyway, I have those ones coming. Any other years aside from them, please let me know, because I have a lot of fun making these videos. And it's interesting to kind of see what would have happened without certain teams. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Oh, and since this is my last video of 2023, Happy New Year, everybody.